I wanted to cover this because I think this is something that just needs to be exposed. And I'm not anti-cop to my core or anything. I know there are good cops. I know cops do work that needs to be done, but there are so many stories of abuse just like this one. And unfortunately, for a lot of cops, I think it could even be said to be a part of cop culture. You get skins on the wall if you're able to elicit confessions. If you're able to get someone to confess to a crime, whether the confession is true or not is immaterial. The fact is, they got you to confess. Therefore, it's like something they can burnish their reputation with. So and so cop was able to extract X number of confessions. Wow, what a cop! And this is an example of the very dark side of this entire phenomenon. I've done a couple of videos before on the subject of police and police interrogation, and I've had my run-ins with cops and cop wannabes, i.e. mall cops, and my counsel to anyone who's brought in for questioning is not, if you ever get first of all, you don't have to talk to them at all. There's nothing that you have a right to remain silent. You don't have to talk. You don't have to tell them anything. But if your idea is, well, I've got to go in and tell them about this because I'm trying to stop a crime from being committed, or I'm trying to catch a criminal, or in this case, this poor man that you see here, his father was missing, and he wanted his father to be found. But the cops got this, as often happens, the interrogator cops got this vibe off of him. He didn't pass the vibe check. He gave them the ick. I don't know what it was. I don't know if he was eccentric or if he didn't if he wasn't a totally polite young man, or if he was a little if he showed signs of being on the autism spectrum. Whatever it was, they just decided, you know what, we think he killed his father, and we're going to try to get him to confess to that. All right, so let's read about what they did. And by the way, this is from the Orange County Register. This took place in a town in California. Within hours after, I'm not going to read this whole thing, I'm just going to hit the highlights. Within hours after Thomas Perez Jr. called police to report his father missing, he found himself in a tiny interrogation room, confronted by Fontana detectives determined to extract a confession that he killed his dad. So the town is Fontana. It's the Fontana Police Department who inflicted this atrocity on Thomas Perez Jr. As you'll see, we read on. Perez had told the police that his father, 71-year-old Thomas Perez Sr., went out for a walk with his family dog at about 10 p.m. on August 7th. The dog returned within minutes without Perez's father. Investigators didn't believe his story, and over the next 17 hours, they grilled him to try to get to the truth. Okay. So here's the thing also, I don't know who needs to hear this, as they always say on the internet. I don't know who needs to hear this. But you don't have to talk to cops for 17 hours straight. Unless they've arrested, once they've talked to you for a few minutes and you get the feeling that now they're asking you the same questions and they're trying to berate you, they're trying to intimidate you, they suspect you, and they want to get you to, and their agenda is to try to get you to manipulate you into confessing to a crime you didn't commit. You don't have to talk to them anymore. You can say, okay, guys, we're through. I'm done. See ya. Okay, unless you're going to arrest me, and chances are they won't arrest you because they don't have any evidence to hold you on. But I know, like, the thing that keeps people in that interrogation room for hours and hours on end when they don't have to be there is just some I think it's just this desire to want to convince the authority figure that you're a good guy. I think it just comes down to that. And from what you see in this picture here, I mean, this man's in agony. I don't know what this guy's like. I don't know. My impression is that he's maybe vulnerable to manipulation in one way or another. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in that damn interrogation room for 17 hours straight. I would say, okay, guys, either charge me with something or I'm leaving. And then take it from there. And, I don't think that the thing is, if you say I don't want to talk to you anymore, then they say, oh, well, you're being uncooperative now. That's not going to look good for you. It's going to look a lot better for you if you just cooperate with us and just answer our questions. It's so slimy. It's so slimy what they do. So, according to court records, detective told Perez, this is where it gets really bad, that his father was dead, that they had recovered his body, and it now wore a toe tag at the morgue. They said they had evidence that Perez killed his father, and he should admit it, records show. This was a lie, okay? This is a total lie, because as the article will reveal shortly, Perez's father was not dead. He was alive. But they thought, okay, we don't like this guy. He just gives off the wrong kind of vibe. We don't trust him. So how can we get him to confess? Well, let's tell him that we found his father's body, and it's got a toe tag on in the morgue. I mean, what blows my mind, and I've watched enough true crime shows to know that this is, lawful behavior for whatever reason. They can lie to you. They're allowed to tell you lies. They're allowed to say, even if you weren't anywhere near a crime scene, they can say, oh, you know what, you deny being near the crime scene, but 3 people said they saw you there, and your DNA was actually found at the scene. So how do you explain that? They can actually tell you that. When that's a lie. And here the lie that they're telling him so far is that his father is dead. This is psychopathy. This is sheer psychopathy. On the interrogator's part, they think they're doing it as a means to like that the end justifies the means. But that's the way psychopaths think. Okay, Torres insisted he didn't remember killing anyone, but detectives allegedly told him The human mind often tries to suppress troubling memories. Okay, here we go again. Remember the video that I made? I'm pretty fired up now. Remember the video that I recorded a few days ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, where I said, watch out for these people who come around and say, you know what, the human memory is always malleable. The human memory can't ever really be trusted. Because what they're really saying is, if you remember something distinctly, they can just dismiss that. And they can just say, well, you know what, the consensus that we've come up with as what actually happened, that's what really happened. And we're going to get to decide what actually happened. And your memory of what happened, that's just your brain playing tricks on you. If they take away the integrity of your memory, then the authorities are free to impose their own, whatever they want to impose as reality, whatever helps them, whatever helps their case, whatever furthers their agenda. So that's why we should be on guard against anyone who ever says human memory is just, is never trustworthy. It's totally malleable. And if you think you remember something, it probably didn't even really happen that way. Okay, so that's a side note, but still an important thing to mention. Perez and okay, blah blah blah. They said, well, the detectives allegedly told him that the human mind often tries to suppress troubling memories. At one point during the interrogation, the investigators even threatened to have his pet Labrador retriever euthanized as a stray and brought the dog into the room so he could say goodbye. Okay, your dog's gone now. Forget about it, said the investigator. So if you don't confess to killing your father, we're going to kill your dog. That's what these creeps said to this guy. This guy who was trying to do the right thing, who thought the police would help him find his father. They're threatening to kill his dog. They're bringing his dog in and saying, well, now's your chance to say goodbye to your dog before we euthanize him. So if you don't confess to the crime, and look, there he is on the floor, in a fetal position with his dog, probably crying his eyes out. I mean, they really, really did a number on this guy because he's psychologically vulnerable. You talk to somebody for hours on end, and I don't know what aspect of his personality made him vulnerable. Maybe he's just somebody who really, wants to make a good impression, who wants, there are people out there who are just people pleasers. I know them very well. My ex-wife was one such person, and she meant well, but she was, it often got her into trouble, and she's not the only one. There are plenty of others. Maybe he's just a people pleaser, and that's why he just doesn't stand up for himself. But the more and more hours they have him in this awful little cramped room, and the more threats that they make, and the horrible lies that they tell him, the more they wear him down. How can you sit there and say you didn't know what happened, and your dog is sitting there looking at you, knowing that you killed your dad? The detective said. Look at your dog. She knows because she was walking through all the blood. This is pure sadism. This is psychopathic sadism. But these cops think they're the good guys. These cops are not the good guys. Finally, after curling up with the dog on the floor, Perez broke down and confessed. He said he had stabbed his father multiple times with a pair of scissors during an altercation in which his father hit Perez over the head with a beer bottle. All right, he made something up to just make it all end. He just came up with a scenario in his mind. Blech. No, I don't want to scan alert. Go away, go away. Hold on. Okay. Now we're back. He was so distraught that he even tried to hang himself with a drawstring from his shorts after being left alone in the interrogation room. Whew. Perez was arrested, handcuffed, and transported to a mental hospital for 72-hour observation. You know, a few years ago, this is the sort of story that would make somebody say, "This is America?" Unfortunately, today, it's more and more easy to believe that this is America, considering the way our authorities, the powers that shouldn't be, the way that they act almost habitually. It's not so hard to believe these days. But later that day, the truth derailed the detectives' theory in their prized confession. Perez's father wasn't dead or even missing. Thomas Sr. was at Los Angeles International Airport waiting for a flight to see his daughter in Northern California, but police didn't immediately tell Perez. They allowed him to go on thinking he's suicidal, he's trying to hang himself, and they allow him to go on thinking that his father's dead. Well, I mean, they told him that lie. So, they don't want to have to admit that they lied. Mentally, okay, so this is a quote about the case. Mentally torturing a false confession out of Tom Perez, concealing from him that his father was alive and well, and confining him in the psych ward because they made him suicidal. In my 40 years of suing the police, I have never seen that level of deliberate cruelty by the police, said Perez's attorney in Newport Beach. The $900,000 settlement. Steering filed a civil rights lawsuit with the city of Montana. The suit was recently settled for $900,000. Perez agreed to the settlement rather than take the case to trial out of concern that a jury award would be overturned on appeal on grounds of qualified immunity of police. Yeah. There again, the police did everything wrong. The police did was terrible, but it was not unlawful, because the police are allowed to tell lies to you. If they suspect that you are a wrongdoer, that you are a lawbreaker, if they if they suspect that you committed a crime, they can lie to you in order to try to manipulate you into confessing. It's fucked up, but that's the way it is. Generally, qualified immunity protects law enforcement officers unless they violate legally established law, blah, blah, blah. Fontana police did not return an email seeking comment. Of course they didn't. 3 of the involved officers remain employed with the department. 1 other officer has retired. I'd like to know the names of these men. I'd like to know who they are. So this is how they tried to justify it. In court documents and depositions, police said they had reason to believe Perez was lying. First, they noted he seemed distracted and unconcerned during the 911 call, according to... Okay. So, again, he didn't pass the vibe check. He behaved strangely. And, again, somebody behaving a certain way, I can understand why it would, it would catch your attention and you might make a note of it. But does that justify what they did? Absolutely not. Especially when it turned out to be when they turn out to be absolutely wrong. And They tortured a man who was not guilty of anything. Said that his father was dead, and in the morgue, and said that they were going to kill his dog, and induced him to try to commit suicide after he made a false confession. So they also, additionally, police dogs sniffed out the scent of a corpse in the father's room, and there were bloodstains in the house, but the steering would later say the bloodstains were caused by the latter's finger prick diabetes tests. So there you go. Perez's, okay, just the icing on the cake here, just the cherry on top. Perez's lawsuit claims detective also refused for several hours to retrieve his medication for high blood pressure, asthma, depression, and stress. There you go. That's the police. You gotta love them. You gotta love people like that guy. And that guy. Yeah. The boys in blue. Good job, boys in blue. Way to go. Love you. Keep it up. Leave your comments below.